Today on SudoBytes, we are going to create a carousel UI. This has some smooth transition between a number of pages, and when you get to the last page, it'll cycle you back to the first page, or if you're on the first page, it'll cycle you to the last page. I could see this being used in touchscreen UIs or as like a media selector or something like that. Anyway, let's get started. We're going to start by creating a new container. This container will have a width of 500. And then inside of that container, you're going to create another container. This one will have a width of 400 by 300, the default width and height. And we're going to rename it page 1. All right. And then inside, we are going to create a text top. This text top will have the text page 1 in it. Page 1. And then under the common tab, we're going to change the resolution to be the default width and height of the container. So we're going to say that this is 400 by 300. And then we're going to create a null top and rename that null top BG. This will help us find it when we change the background of page 1 using the look tab. Background top, we're going to say /BG, which means inside of me look for the top called BG, /. And you can see that we have page 1 here now. And now I'm just going to copy and paste this twice to create our 3 pages, and then change the text of each of these to be the appropriate page 2 and page 3. Cool. So now that we have the pages, we're going to create a main container that they all live in. So we're going to rename this container main. We're going to connect each of these pages up by using the top output into the bottom of main, which essentially makes all of these children of main, right? And you can see that they're being displayed here on top of each other, 1, 2, and 3, just kind of like garbled mess. So in order to straighten this out, we're going to go to the children tab of the main container. And in the align parameter, we're going to select left to right. And that's essentially going to allow us to have our pages next to each other like this. Cool. So next one last thing here, you're going to want to turn on crop here. And that just keeps our alignment in order in the container above us. We're going to create the buttons now. So we're going to take a button, and then inside of this button, we're just going to use the greater than sign as our right arrow. We're then going to change the layout so that the width is 50 and the height is 300. Cool. We're also then going to change the button type to momentary. And then we're going to just copy and paste to make the other one. And then I'm going to change the greater than sign to a less than sign so we have a left arrow. Cool. Up next, we're going to create a count chop, and then a math chop, and then a null chop. And then we're going to connect all these together. And then I'm going to connect the button 1, which is our right button, into the count, the top of the count, which is the trigger, right? And we can see this function. So we can, count up as high as we'd like, but really what we want to do is only count to 3. So we're going to change the limit of our count to loop, and then we're going to set the limit max to 2 because we have 3 states. We have 0, 1, and 2. So we're going to just reset that because it's a garbled mess in there right now. So you just hit that pulse to reset it. And now if we were to go, you can see that we have 3 states, 0, 1, and 2. And that's how many pages we have. We have 3 states, 3 pages. So now in the math chop, we're going to convert those 3 states into the position that those pages exist in the offset here. So I believe it's 400 and 800 because their widths are 400. So we're gonna, in the range category here, the to range, we're gonna make this into a -400. Okay, and then we're gonna connect up the null into this offset. So you're gonna make it viewer active, click and drag it over to the offset, and set chop reference. So now when you click this button, you should transition pages. They're snapping to, but basically you see, page 1, page 2, page 3. Cool. So now what we have to do is get the left button hooked up. And this is where a little bit of trickery comes into play. We're going to use the override chop to trigger the count from both of these buttons. So you're going to select the override chop, and then you're going to use it as the trigger. So right now what happens if we were to make both of these buttons viewer active is both of them trigger the count to go higher, right? What we want is for this button to trigger the count to go lower. So we're going to create another override chop. We're just going to copy and paste this one because it's already connected. And we're going to set it as the third input on the count, which is the increment value. So we're going to connect that up. So now what happens is this override is essentially acting as the value that we're incrementing or decrementing to. And that override is going to get triggered by whoever updates it first. So on our button 2, what we're going to do is just actually put a math in between the button and the override, and then set this value to negative in the mult add tab, the multiply parameter. We're just going to make that a -1, right? So now when we trigger this button, you see that it's decrementing the count value. And when we trigger this button, it's incrementing the count value. That's a fun little trick. Cool. So now we have our network pretty much laid out here. If you wanted to get that smooth transition that I had before, what you can do is put a lag chop in between the math and the null, right? So now this thing will animate smoothly between all of those values. Awesome. The very, very last thing that we have to do is if we look up here, you can see that our buttons are laying on top of each other with our page carousel kind of off to the side. So we're gonna set the buttons in an align order. So our button 1 is gonna have, this is our right button. So it's gonna have the furthest from the side, because I believe this is aligned left to right. Let me just check that. No, we didn't set an alignment. So we're going to set the alignment here left to right. So now you see all of our buttons. And then we're going to set this left button to be our first in line. So in layout, align order, that's already a 0. Then the main container, we're going to set its layout align order to be 1. So it's in the center. And then this button over here, we're going to set its align order to be 2. So it's on the right-hand side. All right, and that about wraps it up. We have this nice carousel UI that transitions between the pages with the nice smooth transition and the 2 buttons that do that. I could easily see this being used in a touchscreen application or something along those lines to select media content or what have you. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.